Good evening, everyone. We'll wait for the rest of our attendees to join, and then we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. I'm David Marin, the lead member and moderator for tonight's forum. We'll be hearing from the candidates for Assembly District 38. Tonight we have Cole Brocato, Steve Bennett, and Daniel Wilson with us, and we'll be responding to the questions that many of you submitted on the website. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our president, Betsy Patterson. Betsy.
Good evening. Thank you all for attending. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920, 6 months before ratification of the 19th Amendment granting women their right to vote nationwide. It was established and continues today as a nonpartisan grassroots political organization to encourage voters to become involved, informed, and active participants in our representative democracy. As a nonpartisan organization, the League does not support or oppose any candidates or any political parties. The League engages in many activities to ensure our democracy works, such as registering voters, educating them about the issues and the candidates, getting out the vote during elections, and supporting fair and transparent elections. The goal of our candidate forums is to allow voters an opportunity to ask candidates questions and hear their positions on issues that affect our communities. The questions were submitted by attendees when they registered for the forum, and the questions were not provided to the candidates in advance. Thank you for joining us. We hope you learn a lot about the candidates and the issues we all face. And now I will turn it back over to our moderator, David Marin.
Thank you, Betsy. We randomly drew numbers earlier to determine the order. We're going to begin our comments with Daniel Wilson, then Steve Bennett second, and Cole Brocato third. At the end of the evening, we reverse that order. At this time, Cole, I'll turn it over to you. You have a minute and a half when you're ready.
I mean, Daniel, correct?
I'm sorry, boy. Yeah, you can see I'm a little rusty. It's Monday and it's the first forum of the season. So Daniel, we'll start with you when you're ready, a minute and a half.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Daniel Wilson, and I am a working class transgender veteran choosing to run for California's 38th Assembly District with no party preference so that there will never be a party, corporate, or any other special interests standing between me and the needs of my constituents. I was raised by a dedicated single mom that worked 2 to 3 jobs to ensure our survival. I started working at 14 and graduated high school just after Columbine, the 2000 economic collapse, and 9/11. Unable to break the poverty ceiling myself, I joined the United States Navy and was stationed right here at NAS Point Mugu, where I fell in love with my wife and this beautiful community. But the pandemic exposed the rotten core of our political system when every level of our government abdicated their responsibility to protect and provide for the residents of this country. As we saw an ever-increasing number of our neighbors lose their jobs and homes, our small businesses permanently close, and our food lines explode with no meaningful response from our elected officials, I realized that no one is going to come save us. We have to step up and save our own communities. Ventura County is an incredible community that comes together to support one another where we can, but many of us still live with a variety of unmet needs. It is an indisputable fact that people work, learn, and function better when they have their basic needs met. This is because you cannot thrive when you are struggling to survive, and the people of Ventura County deserve better than just surviving. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll go to our next candidate, Steve Bennett, when you're ready, please.
Thank you very much, David. First, I would just like to thank the League of Women Voters for, again, being there, steady, regular, at each election, giving the voters an opportunity in a very professional and fair and balanced way to hear from all of us. So it's a good opportunity for me tonight and for Daniel and Cole also to present our views. So again, my appreciations to the League. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected next fall, the things that I'm going to work on fall into 2 major categories. And one is we don't have enough urgency about the climate crisis that we're in. And with that regards, I'm going to focus on trying to make sure we have as smooth a transition from fossil fuels over to renewable energy as possible. It's very easy to set long established goals way out there. It's much harder to actually do the hard work of making the transition. A corollary to that is water. I will be very focused on the water crisis that is going to get more and more severe. And on the other side, the growing negative impacts of the growing income inequality out there has left too many people with inadequate medical care, with poor educational opportunities, and more importantly, not adequate housing. So those are the areas I'll focus on if I am reelected.
Thank you, Steve. And our next candidate is Cole Brocato.
Hello, and thank you all for having me tonight. My name's Cole Brocato, and I'm your candidate for the 38th Assembly District. I'm not a politician. I don't even care for politicians. As a matter of fact, it's because of politicians that I'm here before you this evening. More specifically, their failed policies. I'm a small business owner. I'm a construction guy. I build things. I take broken properties and I fix them. I put roofs over people's heads. I do that on a budget and I do it on time. I think we need more of that in Sacramento, less politicians. I'm also a father. I've got 2 young boys and a little girl on the way. I coach my oldest son's youth football team in Oxnard. And when I talk to people in my community, they're frustrated. They're frustrated and they're hurting. High gas prices, insane inflation, taxes that never stop, and a very bleak outlook on the future of California. They want change, and so do I. That's why I'm here talking to you this evening. I'm here to be that change. I want to work for you, the people of Ventura County and the people of the 38th Assembly District. I want our needs and our views to be represented in Sacramento, and I want someone there that will fight hard for you. I believe I'm that candidate. So I'm here for you. I look forward to your questions, and I can't wait to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first candidate on the question round, we'll start with you, Steve Bennett. And I've grouped most of the questions by categories, so we'll try to keep them in that order as we go. Let's start off with housing, obviously a big concern in the district. First question is, what plans do you have to ensure more affordable housing in the district? What legislation will you propose to address the housing shortage?
A great question, and certainly an important topic for us here in California. And not only legislation I propose, I am the co-author of 2 bills right now that fit exactly my philosophy in terms of what we need. We have an affordable housing crisis because we're not building enough affordable housing. We have gone on a rampage building market rate housing, and we have failed in our responsibility to build affordable housing. The federal government has completely abdicated the responsibility to build affordable housing. And that is how the first world countries that we compete with have actually solved their affordable housing crisis. Their national governments fund long-term affordable housing. And so I am really emphasizing that we have to put a laser focus on affordable housing only. And so that's why I'm on a constitutional amendment that would dedicate 5% of the state's budget for affordable housing projects, an ongoing 5% every year for the next decade. And the second thing is to try to push for things like land trust. And I'm on a bill that's very similar to this, where we pool the rents from everybody that comes in, and we guarantee that the apartments that we build will stay affordable in perpetuity. And too many times we build affordable housing and it doesn't stay affordable.
Thank you. Cole, same question to you. What plans do you have to ensure more affordable housing? What kind of legislation would you propose?
Yeah, for someone who's in this field, more law is the exact opposite of what we need. We need to deregulate. We can spend up to $150,000 before we even start building here in the state of California. The regulation is too high. The one thing that I agree on is there is not enough housing. We can build. We need to do it responsibly. We need to do it in the right areas, and we need to deregulate. Costs need to come down. The inflation is so high right now. To try to get anything done under market, it's going to take more government subsidies. And where's that money going to come from? It's just going to come from taxpayers. Those of us that are working hard right now will get taxed even more. I agree that we need affordable housing, but it needs to be done responsibly. The government is very bloated when it comes to this sense already. We could deregulate, we could drive costs down by lowering some of this inflation. We could get back to hardworking blue collar jobs. We could get back to the private sector being able to build instead of them getting regulated out of existence, and legislation in the assembly right now that hurts investors from building and buying and owning here in the state of California. I think less government and more to the people will get housing costs down in California and keep them down.
Thank you. Daniel, same question to you. What are your plans as far as affordable housing? What legislation would you propose?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'd like to say first and foremost that unfortunately, deregulation is never the answer. And when we look to the industries that have led us to the housing crisis and the incredibly inflated costs to purchase houses right now, we should never go to the people who have caused the problem for the solution. Renters and homeowners are being taken advantage of with high rents, unaffordable down payments, and being squeezed out of the market by real estate investors. We need to mandate protections for renters, incentivize first-time home buyers, and we need to look at, especially here in Ventura County, where we don't want to continue building and risk, sacrificing our farm and agricultural land and our open air spaces. We need to take a innovative look and reestablish some of our places that have fallen fallow and are not being used. We have industrial sectors, warehouses, hotels, and other huge spaces that are no longer being utilized, that we could turn those into multifamily units instead of continuing to go into single family housing. I think that while it is very important to, we definitely need to make sure that we have more affordable housing, that the housing we're building is not going to go up to market rate and above that. But we also need to make sure that that affordable housing is built with quality materials and that we are not sacrificing quality for our poorest communities that need the safe housing the most.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's sort of stay on housing. We'll talk about homelessness. Cole, you're up first for this question. How would you address homelessness in the region? What kind of policies and what things would you advocate for?
Absolutely. So, homelessness is so hard. I've lived all over the state and it's everywhere. And it's right next door to my home here in Ventura County. Homeless encampments aren't a photo opportunity for me. It's something I deal with on a day-to-day basis. If you talk to the homeless people here in our community, they're not there because they want to be. They're there because they're dealing with true hardship, whether it be drug addiction or mental illness. And we need to help these people. I'm all for compassionate solutions, but when you talk to mothers of these people, fathers of these people, sons and daughters of these people, they don't view it as compassionate for us to turn a blind eye to what's happening. When we tie the hands of law enforcement who would reach out and try to help these people or find them when they're high on illegal drugs or, doing things that harm the community, that put the community at risk, law enforcement's hands are tied. They're not allowed to bring them to facilities to help them get into help. We need to be truly compassionate to them. And it doesn't mean buying them housing. It means getting them into shelters. When we put homeless people, especially the ones that are addicted to drugs, in homes by themselves, they're found dead with a needle in their arm. That's not compassion. Families don't think that that's compassion. We need to reinvest and we need to really focus on shelters and a full-on approach to how we partner with law enforcement and
Thank you,
mental.
Cole.
Oh, sorry.
Gonna have to stop you there. Daniel, let's hear your thoughts about homelessness. What would you do to address the problems?
Absolutely. As a veteran, homelessness is one of my most important focuses. There are too many of my brothers and sisters that have given everything to serve our country that are left sleeping out on our streets. And aside from veterans, the problem is rampant through many communities. And as I addressed in my opening, our numbers here in Ventura County continue to climb. We're fortunate that it's warm here, but that does not make it okay to for us to accept that we just have so many of our community members sleeping on the streets. There is huge problems with shelters being unsafe and not having the resources that they need to adequately serve the homeless community, as well as the ridiculous restrictions that are put on our unhoused members of our society to give up their dogs, their belongings, their partners to go into homeless shelters. And we need to focus on a transitory system to where not only do we just cycle them through the jails and the emergency rooms and through shelters with no actual end in sight. We need not only to have more places to keep them safe, to put them into housing. Like I said, we can convert motels and hotels that are not being used, and also some of our apartment complexes that aren't fully stocked. We can use those places to give them a safe place to sleep at night, but make sure that we're providing resources to get them the help, the education, and the job that they need to put them back on their feet because they want to be a productive member of our society.
Thank you. And Steve, we'll wrap up this question with you. What are your thoughts, plans, and strategies for dealing with homelessness?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is recognize there is no easy solution to this multifaceted problem. There are all kinds of different homeless people out there, chronically homeless, episodically homeless, families that have broken up, people that became homeless because they got an illness and then lost their job and got bounced out. And again, if it was easy, we would, there's so many people are passionate about this issue, we would be able to address it. So I think the thing to do is be honest about the problem and try to focus our energy at the key points. One, the federal government is the only government agency that has the resources to really build enough affordable housing and help us with the homeless problem. Everybody else is going to be doing it. We try to put the burden on the city of Los Angeles, try to put the burden on the city of Ventura, the city of Oxnard. They simply won't have the resources to handle this big of a problem. The second thing is, I think that when you see the problem out there, you have to focus the limited resources that you have. And so my priority has always been homeless families first. Don't let children spend the night in a homeless shelter if at all possible. That's a scarring event for them. Second thing is get them off the street, get them someplace where you can get social services to those people. And then hopefully, and we have done a decent job in the last few years, there's more acceptance that we have to get together and solve the problem of homelessness. Then you get the housing.
Thank you, Steve. Going to stay with you, Steve, for our next round of questions. We actually had quite a few questions regarding Second Amendment and guns. This first one is, what are your views about stopping gun shows at the fairgrounds? If you support that, what are you doing? And do you think that'll improve public safety?
I certainly do support ending the gun shows at the fairgrounds. I support it to the point that Senator Monique Limon and I are the co-authors of the bill to try to stop that here at the Ventura County Fairgrounds. Do I think that's going to have a dramatic effect? No, I don't. But I think that one of our problems is in this country, we have allowed the gun culture sort of a free ride to expand their influence and create this very unhealthy environment where we celebrate this gun culture. Just today in the newspaper, the articles came out about how if you live in a house where a co-inhabitant has a gun, you're much more likely to die than if you live in a house that doesn't. That just counters the whole theory that we all need guns to protect ourselves. In fact, it has made us the least safe first world society out there. We have more guns than everybody else. So taking on the gun show initiative and the bill that we have there is an attempt to start to reverse the process of the ever expanding influence of the gun culture. That is, it is a small but important first step. But overall, we are, just pardon the pun, outgunned by all the money that comes from the gun manufacturers who are funding much of these gun culture proposals and culture.
Thank you, Steve. And Daniel, we'll go to you for the same question. What are your views on gun shows at the fairgrounds? Would you push to stop those? And do you think that would improve public safety?
Absolutely. I think that we shouldn't delude ourselves in thinking that canceling the one event where people can acquire guns is going to have any meaningful impact on the gun safety and the gun problem that we are facing in this country. Like I said, I grew up right after Columbine, and I've known nothing but my entire educational life, but school and mass shooting. So I do understand fully that this is a problem, but we need to look more into education, into requiring better background checks, into making sure that guns aren't getting into the hands of people that have felonies and that are domestic abusers. But removing the gun show from Ventura County isn't going to keep guns out of the hands of people that we want to keep them out of. So I think we need to make a more targeted look at where the actual problems are and how the guns are getting into the hands of people and why they are being led to such desperation that they would reach for a gun to do the massive amounts of harm that is being inflicted in people in our society. So I think we need to look at better mental health and health care to make sure that people are being treated. So this is a very big issue that is easier than just canceling guns at one location or another. I think we need a bigger approach.
Thank you. And Cole, same question to you. What is your position on gun shows at the fairgrounds?
Yeah, I think eliminating them is a violation of our Second Amendment to start. I also know the owners of the gun show, and it's a family business. It's been around for a couple of generations. They love their business. I think that it takes firearms away from law-abiding citizens who have every right to own them if they can go through the background checks and they do what they need to do to be able to obtain a gun. That's what it's there for. We already have laws in place. You don't walk out of the gun show with a gun in hand. There is no gun show loophole. There's a 10-day waiting period. They hardly even sell guns at the gun show anymore. But if the last 2 years haven't taught us anything, when COVID hit, we emptied out our jails. We put people who committed quite a few violent crimes out of prison. Crime is through the roof throughout the state. Crime is extremely bad in Los Angeles County, and we're trying to keep it out of Ventura County. And one of the things that does that is we have one of the highest CCW rates in the state of California. We have a well-armed citizenry here in this state of law-abiding citizens, not criminals. I don't know where there was an article written that said, there's a gun in your house, you're more likely to die. I've never heard anything like that. What I know as a responsible gun owner, that responsible people owning guns, especially women, especially moms who want to protect themselves. We don't want more victims. I am all for responsible, law-abiding citizens obtaining guns legally.
Thank you. And Daniel, we're going to start our next round of questions with you, and we'll move into another controversial subject, and that's mandates, vaccines, the state of the emergency that was called by the governor. So for this first question, Daniel, do you support vaccine mandates, and would you vote to end the state of emergency? If not, why not?
Okay, so I am absolutely opposed to vaccine mandates. I think that we have the right to decide whether we are going to get them. However, I am for encouraging vaccines. I am not anti-vaccination, but I am understanding that for a variety of reasons, whether it be a medical concern, whether it be because of what is in the vaccine, whether because of having an allergic reaction, there's a variety of reasons other than just being anti-vax that people don't get the vaccine. So we can't just lump everybody together and put this blanket mandate on people without taking into account people's individual needs and medical circumstances. With that being said, if there is no vaccination mandate, I have been for, and I am for the mask mandate, because there are people, like I said, who can't get the vaccine whether they want to or not. And so we should do our part as community members to make sure that if we are COVID positive but asymptomatic, we are not affecting our neighbors that may have cancer and other pre-existing comorbidities that would make them more likely to get COVID. I think that as we are winding down and our numbers are decreasing, that it is time to look at reducing and removing the emergency mandate that we have on the emergency orders that we have in right now. However, I just saw something about numbers rising and a current city in the United States closing down. So we need to take everything into account as the numbers continue fluctuating.
Thank you. Cole, same question to you. Do you support the vaccine mandates, and what would be your position on the state of emergency?
I do not support the vaccine mandates, not as a citizen, And if elected, I'll remember that it's not in the purview of government to mandate medical treatments on our citizens. We're free. This is still America. I trust my neighbors. If they want to get a vaccine and it's available to them, then they have every right to do it. But if they don't want to, or if they don't want their children to get it, they should have every right to refuse that as well. I'm not going to mask citizens' face, especially with a mask that on the box, most of them say, do not stop viruses. I believe that viruses are real. I think that people do get sick. And I think that it's a compassionate thing to not go around people if you are sick. But I also think isolating our elderly and not giving them the option to be able to see their family or their loved ones. I think that masking our kids in school is atrocious. I think that it's absolutely horrific. And again, it's not the government's job. The government is not our parents and they're not our doctor. We make those decisions for ourselves. We'll decide if our kids need to wear a mask. We'll decide if we want to wear a mask. We'll decide if we need a medical intervention or not. And as far as the state of emergency goes, we hosted the Super Bowl here in this state. There's no need for a state of emergency.
Thank you. Steve, we'll wrap up that question with you. What's your position on vaccine mandates, and would you vote to end the state of emergency? If not, why not?
If you look at the whole picture of public health in this country, we have over and over again mandated vaccines for a variety of reasons. I don't think anybody would suggest that when smallpox was running rampant, that it was just up to everybody to decide if they wanted to get the smallpox vaccine or not. The same thing, goes with one vaccine after another. To suggest that there isn't a place for public health, there isn't a place for the science to tell us when we have a vaccine that is safe and that is going to make the community safe. The question really you have to ask yourself is, are we all in this together or not? There is a time and a place for vaccines, and we have multiple situations where we require people to get vaccinated if they want to work at a certain job, et cetera. Now, this particular vaccine and this particular situation, I think the science keeps evolving in terms of where do we need to be at one time or another. But I certainly reject the idea that it should be completely up to individuals when you have the health of everybody in the community at stake. And with regards to the emergency, if you lift the state of emergency, then all kinds of financial things that are required will fall apart. So you have to be wise how you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Daniel, we're going to start the next question with you, and we'll stay on vaccines. If you're elected, Daniel, how will you help businesses that were impacted by the pandemic and the mandate?
That's actually a really good question, because I've seen that there are many small businesses in my area that still to this day have not been able to reopen their doors. I think we need to look at reinvesting in small businesses. I think that too much of both our state and federal money goes to subsidizing corporations and big businesses, when we should be redirecting those funds into uplifting our small businesses and our local businesses that are really the bread and butter of our economy. A lot of our funds have disappeared from our local businesses being able to put back into their community via taxes, via their profits. And then also the money that they pay their workers has now been lost in sales revenue as well. So there's a terrible, there's a terrible trickle effect from our small businesses closing to where it impacts so many sectors of our society. So I think reevaluating and reprioritizing small businesses instead of all the subsidies that we give to large businesses. Another thing that we can do is in our constantly fluctuating community with veterans and the military bases that we have. A local business owner suggested to me that they be allowed to 1 month a year. Small businesses are only allowed to hang up a grand opening sign for the first month that they open. We could do a small business appreciation month every year, where businesses are allowed to hang up their signs again, have block parties, and celebrate and reintroduce themselves to new members of the community that might have come in since they have opened their doors.
Thank you. Steve, same question to you. How will you help businesses that were impacted by the pandemic?
But during the pandemic, certainly the state put significant amount of resources forward, small business loans. And I've talked to many small business owners who have said that that was just essential to get them by. But now going forward, I think the real issue that small businesses are struggling with is the employment question, trying to get trained, skilled people, quality people to work for them and stay. What they're experiencing, small business owners, is a high, rapid turnover of employees and simply not finding enough employees that either are willing or are trained to do the work that small businesses there. So I think the state of California needs to help small businesses, and that's everything from tax credits to a better job of trying to help get people back into the workforce. We're working hard with the community colleges to try to help people get retrained for this ever-changing work environment that is out there. But I think trying to help small businesses, when I talk to small business owners, they so appreciate the quality employees that they have. They want to hang on to them, and they need more of those employees. So trying to get everybody back into the workforce is the best way to help those small businesses.
Okay, thank you. And Cole, we'll wrap up with you. What policies would you recommend to help businesses that were hurt by the pandemic?
Yeah, see, I think a tax holiday is a great idea for small businesses here in the community. I think anything to incentivize people to get back to work would be a huge help to everyone here in the community as well. We rolled extra unemployment for a very long time, even after we started to open things back up. And it was, really hard to find people that wanted to go to work after that happened. I agree that we need to work on helping the young people that are coming out of school to be better educated and to be ready to get into the workforce. But I think that needs to start in K through 12. I think that there's too many people that are coming out of our California schools with all the money that we spend in taxes on these schools that are coming out not ready to join the workforce. And that's terrible. That's something that we need to address right now. That would absolutely help small businesses. I agree too that we should stop subsidizing these huge corporations. Walmart did great during the pandemic. Amazon has done very well since then. We need to get back to helping Main Street, not Wall Street. I think that there's a lot that can be done. I'm friends with most of these small business owners, and quite a few of them, the PPE loans or whatever they were, they didn't help. They didn't keep their doors open. They didn't keep them running. What they want is the government to not shut them down again, for people to be able to have the choice. If they want to keep their businesses open and their doors open and people want to come visit them, they want that to be their part of the American dream. They don't believe in a government that's allowed to just turn it off.
Thank you. Cole, we're going to stay with you for the next question. We're going to shift to the environment. And Cole, we are in the 5th year of a drought. What do you believe are the proper policies to deal with this? And how do you think the public should be engaged regarding conservation and incentives?
Yeah, I think the water crisis here in California, and we keep talking about these things, these crises, and how much we put on the government. Government's helping with housing. We're in a housing crisis. They help with energy crisis. They help with water crisis. Now the government can't cause a drought, but we can do a lot to help with it. Part of it is looking at the water issue from a wholesale perspective. We need to work with better water capture. We need to work with desalinization. We found a great way to do it in San Diego. It's happening all over on all the countries that are up against the Pacific Ocean. We've got the largest body of water right next to our county, and we're out of water. It is one of those things. I'm tired of, we talk about a greener California. Is it just painted green? Are we going to rip out everyone's lawn and just put in AstroTurf? Green means green. We need vegetation. We need to take care of our farmers. We need more water. And I don't think that we should be irresponsible with desalinization. I don't think we should be irresponsible with, capturing the water as it's coming down the mountains. I think that we should do it responsibly, and I think that we should get it to the right places. But we need to start looking at a 21st century problem with 21st century solutions. And I think desal is a great way to start. We're on the right level when it comes to water. I think that we need to re-green California and actually mean that it's green with shrubbery and plant life. And it'll help with the forest fires as well.
Thank you. Steve, same question to you. What do you think should be done to engage the public in conservation and incentives? What do you think are the ways to deal with the water problem?
Well, first, I'll mention a bill that I have moving through the state legislature right now. And that bill requires that in all of the overdraft groundwater basins, that we put more energy into evaluating requests for new wells. Since we passed the state's new historic law to start to regulate groundwater, in the Central Valley alone, 4,000 new wells were sunk. Now, that's not a way to preserve your groundwater. And so I think we need to have more emphasis on regulating the groundwater that has built up over thousands of years on the Oxnard Plain with the Fox Canyon groundwater basin in the Central Valley, et cetera. So we have large farms that are sinking their wells deeper and causing the farm worker community across the highway to run out of drinking water. So that bill is designed to try to do that. In general, water is going to be a major focus of mine as we go forward. I think I have a significant background in water after serving on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And we certainly have to convince everybody that this is not a drought, which is temporary. We're going through aridization, which is a permanent change in the rainfall patterns here in Southern California. And if we're having a permanent change, then we have to make a permanent change in our lifestyle. And I wish I had more than a minute and a half to try to answer this question.
Thank you. Daniel, same question to you as far as dealing with drought. What kind of policies for conservation and incentives? What do you think are some of the solutions to the water problem?
Sure. So we constantly hear the narrative that it is on the average person to mitigate human impacts on our environment, when it is the corporations and the wealthy that use and abuse our environment the most. Here in California, we are going into our second cycle of 3+ years of drought in the last 20 years. But we have companies like Nestle, Aquafina, PepsiCo, and Dasani and Coca-Cola that have unending wide open permits to just bottle our water, while everyday residents are told that we have to take 5-minute showers, that we can't water our lawns, and we can't wash our cars. And they're bottling our water to sell it to other people. It's not even bottling it to be reused in the state of California for the people that are suffering from the drought. So we need to look at where our water is going when we do have it. But I also agree with Cole that we need to focus on desalination. I think it is a travesty that we spent so much money building that plant in San Diego and have basically let it lie fallow. And when we talk about getting it back to full operation, everybody talks about how we can't afford it and it's going to cost too much. Well, then that only is the conversation when we're getting rain. All of a sudden, we're back in a drought cycle and people start looking at it. By the time we might get it going again, then it's going to start raining and they're going to say we don't need it. We need to look at these problems with a long-term projection. Just because we might get rain tomorrow doesn't mean that we're not going to have another drought in the next 5 or 10 years. I think that we need to build desalination plants all throughout the state of California. We have the largest coastline in the country. We need to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Daniel. Candidates, we have a lot of questions that were submitted, wonderful questions, but we're going to run out of time. If you'll all be agreeable, I'm going to shift to 1 minute. I'm going to ask our timer to change the timer to 1 minute. And hopefully most of these questions are a little easier to answer in that time frame. And if you go 1 or 2 seconds over, I promise not to mute you immediately. But I think you all enjoy these questions. And let's take a break from some of the policies and let's learn a little bit more about each of you. And the district. So one thing is that AD 38 is the new number for this district. The boundaries have changed. It's now incorporating Ojai, Ventura, Oxnard, Santa Paula, Fillmore, and parts of Camarillo, north of the freeway, and I think it's west of Lewis Road. So Steve, you're up first, or I guess we lost Steve there for a moment. We will.
I'm good.
Okay, you're good? Okay, Steve, thank you. So Steve, Oxnard will now be in your district. It's no longer with Jackie Irwin. How do you plan to engage Oxnard residents, especially in the South Oxnard neighborhoods?
I've already begun that process in terms of engaging those people there. And I feel very good about that. You know, the Farm Worker Resource Program, for example, that I passed in the county of Ventura a number of years ago, along with Supervisor John Zaragoza at the time, it engages a lot of people in Oxnard, a lot of farm workers in South Oxnard in particular. And that's been a first in the state program that has people who specialize in doing nothing but trying to help farm workers survive in modern America. People that are living on $20,000, $22,000 a year. It has been so successful that the state of California now, they've modeled it, and we hope to have 4 more counties following that Farm Worker Resource Program. I stay in touch with the leaders in Oxnard and the neighborhoods, and the neighborhood councils in Oxnard are a great source of information about what is going on locally in a particular neighborhood. So Oxnard is a place that, oh yeah, we only have a minute. There you go.
Yeah, but that's okay. All right, Cole, same question to you. If you're elected, tell us a little bit about how you will be representing the largest city in the district, how you plan to engage residents in Oxnard and South Oxnard and really throughout the district.
So I live in Oxnard. I coach youth football there in Oxnard. That is my community. That's my home. I'm already engaging in the district, and I'm not doing it over Zoom. I go door to door in the district. I'm, constantly campaigning. I go to the grocery stores there. I talk to my neighbors there, and they're upset. They're upset. The people, the hardworking blue collar workers there in Oxnard, this, $7 a gallon gas is crushing them. This high inflation is hurting them. At this point, they wanted the help of the government. Now they just want the government to leave them alone. They don't trust government anymore. They want to be happy. They want to be free. They want to see their community thrive. They want, less crime in their streets. They want better schools. They want their kids to get good education. They want their shot at the American dream. They want the beauty that is the rest of Ventura County there in South Oxnard. And I think that that's something that we can do. I do trash cleanups there. I do beach cleanups there. We just need to engage these people and actually talk to them. That's all they want.
Thank you, Cole. Daniel, same question to you. As far as Oxnard will now be part of this district, how do you intend to engage Oxnard residents, especially South Oxnard neighborhoods?
Well, while I don't actually live in Oxnard, I'm Oxnard adjacent. I live in Port Hueneme, so I spend a lot of my time shopping and visiting and other things in Oxnard. And for the last year specifically, I've been working with Showing Up for Racial Justice, and we do a community care event the last Sunday of every month at different parks, where we bring hot plates of food. We serve over 100 hot plates. We hand out hygiene packs, canned goods, and clothes to the people that need it there. And engage with them and ask them questions about what they need, what they're going through, and what the problems are in Oxnard that have led them to, be living on the streets and to need the resources that we're trying to provide to people. In addition to that, I also work with Oxnard LGBTQ, Families First Oxnard, and a number of other groups that are really going out into the streets and talking to the people to find out where their needs are not being met, so that we can make sure that we're legislating for them and not just legislating for them.
Thank you. Cole, we'll go back to you for this next question. I think that's a great one. Many residents are looking for legislators to be less partisan and work with the other party. What issues do you think you can work with the other party if you are elected? And have you worked in a bipartisan manner before?
That's a great question. I think that we all work in a bipartisan manner every day. When I'm out in the community, when I'm out working with people, I don't ask them what party they believe in or who they vote for. We just work and we solve problems together. We build things together. Anytime that I'm working and we're hiring people, I don't ask them what party they're in first. I think there's a lot that can be done. If we're serving the people of California, it shouldn't be a partisan issue. If we're actively, we spend a lot of time talking about how we need to roll up our sleeves and we need to make hard sacrifices, but I don't see the government making the hard sacrifice. And I think that that's what I would like to do in a bipartisan fashion, is to get government to roll up its sleeves, maybe take some hard pay cuts, and to help the people of the state of California. That's something that I would like to do in a bipartisan fashion.
Thank you. Steve, same question to you. What issues do you think you can work with the other party? Have you worked in a bipartisan manner before?
I think the issue that strikes me and that I've had real success with up in Sacramento is the issue of accountability. There is a great frustration that in the complex California government that is out there, these departments and agencies don't have enough accountability. And so I have written a bill that requires much more accountability from all of these agencies. And I'm really pleased to let you know tonight that we had our first committee hearing and I won unanimous support for that. That's bipartisan. Every Republican voted for it and every Democrat voted for it to increase the amount of accountability that these department and agencies have to demonstrate so that we can annually get a checkup and find out if they're moving forward with the things that they're required to. So that's probably the most unifying theme up in Sacramento right now in my mind.
Thank you. Daniel, we'll wrap up this question with you. How do you think you can work with the other party? Well, and you already stated your no party preference, so let's change the question. How do you think you will work best with both of the other parties? And do you have any experience working in a bipartisan or multi-partisan way?
Absolutely. I have a lot of experience working in a bipartisan or a multi-partisan way, and that is what actually informed my decision to run this route. Whether it be volunteering or especially my time in the military, you don't look at the person when you're on the front line or you're on the flight line. You don't look at the person beside you and ask, "Oh, how are you registered to vote?" before I know whether I'm going to save your life or not. You have to know that the person beside you has your back no matter what. Political allegiances be damned. And I think that is where most people really fall. And that is what I have experienced communicating with my community, is that when you remove the partisan language and the partisan talking points from the conversation, you actually get to have one and you can engage beyond the talking points and have a nuanced discussion. And what I've found, I have my family, my parents are Republican, some of my best friends are Republican, as well as I'm friends and aligned with people that are in the Democratic Socialists of America. So I every day embody a nonpartisan attitude to where I'm just focusing on the people.
Okay, thank you. Steve, we're going to start the next question with you. And just let's teach the voters a little bit about you. Tell us about your work history and why you feel that will help you be an assembly member or continue to be an assembly member. Just tell us a little bit about your background that prepared you for this job.
Great, in 1 minute, right? But I grew up in a neighborhood where there were 24 houses, and every house was purchased by a veteran after World War II. There were 84 children in those 24 houses. So I grew up very much in a community where we shared everything. The very first power lawnmower that was purchased was shared by all of the neighbors. They all went together and purchased that. So that's the concept that I come from, community first, as we move forward. I went to high school in Indianapolis. I went to university at Brown. I was an honors graduate in economics, and then I became a high school economics teacher and United States history teacher. And that, I think, really gave me a great background for government service. And then after that, I was elected to the Ventura City Council for 1 term. I then coordinated the SOAR initiatives in Ventura County that protect our open space and our ag land that have become very popular. And then 20 years on the Board of Supervisors before I got elected to the Assembly.
Okay, thank you. And Daniel, same question to you. Tell us a little bit about your work history, why you feel that's prepared you to be an assembly member.
Absolutely. Well, I think that nothing and no one can ever be fully prepared for being an elected official and the obstacles and the difficulties that we will face. I truly believe that my life has prepared me to represent our community because I've lived through a lot of the same experiences. Growing up poor and working class, having to decide whether you're going to, buy your kids Christmas presents or pay your electric bill. You've never had to make these, extremely difficult decisions. How can we truly understand what our communities are going through? My time serving as an aviation mechanic, as a collateral duty inspector in the United States Navy, taught me to approach situations in an unbiased and comprehensive manner to quickly pinpoint problems and come up with workable solutions. These decisions many times had to be split second and while weighing the risks and consequences of the lives of the 5 pilots trusting me to keep them safe. Additionally, it is my time, as I said before, in the military that taught me that I can work with anybody that to find workable solutions for the people. Now you're muted, David.
Nope.
And Cole, we'll wrap up with you on this question. Tell us about your work history and why you think that's prepared you for the job.
Sure. So I'm a lifelong Californian. I'm a fourth generation Californian. Was raised in a hardworking military family. I had a great-great-grandfather served in World War I, great-grandfather in World War II. Grandfather was an Army vet. My dad was an Army vet. And hard work and blue-collar work ethic kind of runs in my blood. My dad was a framing contractor. He taught me and my brother at a young age. Started working as soon as I could get my work permit. I think I was 13 at my first job. I've been working hard and ever since. I have a small, like the definition of mom and pop business. It's me and my wife's real estate investing company. We're really small. We do all the work ourselves. My dad comes in, we find really distressed or even like practically fallen down properties and we rebuild them. Nothing's ever lost. Nothing's ever wasted. And most houses that I've ever done have gotten sold to first-time home buyers. And I get to take pride in that in my community and in the state.
Thank you. Candidates, you did a great job with 1 minute, but I'm sure you'd all appreciate going back to 1.5 minutes. So we're going to do that. Our timer, if we'll switch back to 1:30, and we'll go back to a few policy questions as we start to wrap up. Daniel, you're up first on this one. Daniel, share with us your thoughts on veteran benefits and how you can improve veteran benefits and treatment of veterans within the state and within the county.
Absolutely. I think that is absolutely a great question. Veteran benefits, being an 80% service-connected disabled veteran myself, I am well aware of the wonderful things that exist in our veteran system, as well as the tragic pitfalls that exist where so many of us fall through the cracks. We need, while I know that the state here can't do anything for federal legislation as far as the VA administration, like I mentioned earlier, we do have homeless veterans. California is actually the state with the largest homeless veteran population. And so even though it can't necessarily do anything about VA benefits, I think that we can do a lot in our state to make sure that our veterans aren't falling through the cracks, that there are resources in place to get them to the VA or to get them housing, to get them the mental health, to get them whatever they need that they are in one form or another not able to get from the VA. I also think that there's a huge misconception that all veterans have health care. So a huge thing that I would push for, not only in the state of California, but I am a huge supporter of Medicare for all nationally. So we need a universal single payer healthcare system because veterans aren't guaranteed healthcare. And even if we are approved for disability benefits through the VA, our spouses and our dependents are not covered with healthcare. And so there are a lot of veterans who are paying $500, $600, $700, $800 out of pocket, even though they're disabled, to cover their spouse and their family's medical coverage. So we need to look at better medical treatment and medical coverage for our veterans through a universal healthcare program that would also help unburden the VA from our exorbitant wait times.
Thank you, Daniel. Cole, same question to you. What are your thoughts on veteran benefits and serving veterans within the region?
Yeah, we definitely need to take care of our vets. We're the land of the free because of the brave, and they really are our best and brightest. Anything that we can do to help veterans must be done. I'm an auxiliary member at the local VFW. I talk to the guys all the time. I know after the debacle in Afghanistan, there was guys that were really suffering. They're really going through it. Guys suffering with depression. I was on suicide watch for friends. I mean, it's really tough what they go through. And if you're not there, you can't really understand. I think, one of the things that a lot of the guys I know would like, we don't have a VA here close by. They'd like a commuter lane pass if they're a disabled veteran. I think that's an easy thing that the state of California could issue for vets. I agree that every veteran should have access to wonderful health care. If there's not a VA hospital nearby, they should absolutely be able to use hospitals in closer proximity. I think that we should do huge tax incentives for anyone that employs veterans. Know that there's talk about liability insurance goes up for some people when they employ people who serve in combat overseas. Our best and brightest are not a liability when they come home. They're to be treasured, and we should do everything in our power to take care of them. I can't say enough. These men and women that I get to spend time with are absolutely incredible. Anything that the state of California can do to support them, we should do.
Thank you. And Steve, we'll wrap up the question with you. What are your plans as far as helping veterans? What do you think about what can be done?
I think the first thing we need to recognize is we have put our veterans through tremendously stressful psychological, emotional situations. I mean, to have people back when I was growing up, you served one tour of duty in Vietnam, and then you were out. We had soldiers serving tour after tour after tour in Afghanistan and Iraq, much more stressful, and a much smaller percentage of our population doing all of that work for all of the rest of us. So I think we have to recognize just how great of a stress we put on them and how much gratitude we should show them. That being said, I think that the biggest problem is not the amount of money we're spending on benefits, but how we're spending the money on benefits. I think over and over again, people are very disappointed with the Veterans Administration and how it is handling the distribution of those funds. So working closely with Congresswoman Julia Brownley is essential since she serves on the Veterans Committee. We have a select committee in the State Assembly on Veterans Affairs, and that select committee can focus on a particular problem. But it is a little bit like what I said with climate change. Easy to talk about the big goals, hard to actually deliver quality service. That's what we have to work on.
Thank you. We'll start the next question with you, Cole. How would you address illegal immigration? Do you support benefits for illegal immigrants, according to the question? So share with us your thoughts about immigrants.
So I'm the great grandchild of immigrants from Mexico. My mother's maiden name was Santos. I absolutely support legal immigration with everything that we went through with COVID, with the drug epidemic that we're going through right now in the state of California, with the concern that the other party likes to bring up with guns. We have got to secure our border. I don't support us going around and spending taxpayer dollars on rounding people up. But if there's people that are not supposed to be in our country that commit crimes or do things like that, I don't think they should be, allowed to stay here in our country. When it comes to taxpayers, I think the taxpayers here in California, we're spread pretty thin. I think we're hurting. I think our small businesses are hurting. I don't think we have it in us to be paying for people that aren't supposed to be here. And it also hurts people that are trying to come here the right way, people that are waiting in line because they want their shot at the American dream and they get pushed to the back. We've got veterans that don't get free benefits. We've got hardworking Americans in California that don't get free benefits or free college or all these things. I think that sometimes we make some of these decisions with the right intention in heart, but it ends up being very harmful and very hard on the citizens here in California. So no, I don't support that.
Thank you. Steve, same question to you as far as addressing illegal immigration, and do you support benefits for illegal immigrants?
Well, one of the biggest questions for all of us out there in the country. So let me make these points about that. Number one, it is one of the easiest topics out there to engage in demography on. I mean, people are just way too willing to use this issue to score political points. It is a hard issue that you have to roll your sleeves up, and we really need Congress to come up with an immigration policy that answers these questions. What can we actually handle? How much immigration can we handle? How should we handle the border? What are the nuances of all of the important questions, like what do we do with the 13 million people here who have been here for a long period of time? What do we do with the dreamers? And when you ask people, theoretically, people have one position, but when you ask them about immigrants that they know, people that have come to the country, undocumented people that have come to the country and have been working in their community, almost to a person, people say, well, those people are different. We should take care of those people. We have divorced the two issues, what the real problem is from the politics around this. So yes, I think it's a hugely nuanced question, David. To dreamers, it would be one answer. To somebody that just came across the border, undocumented a week ago, it's a different answer. For people that have been here 25 or 30 years, it's a different answer.
Thank you. We'll wrap up the question with you, Daniel. Tell us about your position on this issue.
Absolutely. I would like to start first and foremost by saying that no human being is illegal. We have members of our community that are undocumented, yes, but people conveniently forget that even if you're undocumented, if you have a job, you're paying taxes. And if you're paying taxes in this country, nothing you get from the government is free. So many of our undocumented community members had no choice in the decision to come to this country and should not be penalized, neglected, nor deported now that they are here. In terms of policing and immigration, I fully support AB 937. It's referred to as the Vision Act, which prohibits local police from coordinating with ICE. While I do not begrudge immigration from doing their job, we have an extreme problem in our community where ICE works in coordination with our local police officers to set up false DUI checkpoints that are nothing more than driver's license and immigration checkpoints, which is a violation of everybody's Fourth Amendment rights, where you cannot search and seizure somebody without actually having been seen committing a crime. So people are pulled over and stopped with under the pretense of a DUI checkpoint when they have done nothing wrong, have committed no crime, and then they are now swept into the deportation process when they have, like I said, committed no crime. So we need to focus on restorative justice and making sure that community members that are here are not penalized for the life that has been thrust upon them as children, as DACA, as dreamers. And we need to have a viable path for them to their citizenship.
Thank you. And we're really running out of time. This will probably be our last question. Cole, you're up first. And I do want to get one more environmental question in. Cole, should the state of California support a regional collaboration for the Ventura River watershed management? So this has certainly been a big concern for those in the area. So do you think the state should support the regional collaboration for the Ventura River watershed management?
Oh man, you'll have to kind of help me out. Do I think the state should be interjecting in that, or do I think that they should let the county just work on it themselves? I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Well, all I have is the question, so I can't tell you what the person who wrote the question was actually thinking, but perhaps you could broaden it to just talk about the Ventura River and the watershed. This has been an issue in the news regarding the steelhead trout over the years, and the homelessness in the river and that type of thing.
Understood. So, now I understand the question.
Okay.
Well, kind of.
Right, we'll start now with you. Go ahead.
Okay. So you never want to see a species be displaced. I've heard mixed things about the steelhead trout, whether they were indigenous to California or whether they weren't. But again, water is such a tough topic, and we need more. This is one of those situations that if we were properly managing our water, as opposed to just telling Californians, we don't have enough of it, it's your fault, pay more for it and use less, we wouldn't have as many of these issues. Our rivers need to be full and flowing. Our lakes need to be replenished. Our reservoirs need to be replenished. Water management is a huge thing. We talk about, protecting marine life. Well, what about land life? What about the animals that live in the woodlands? What about the people living here in the state of California? We need to be looking out for all of these things at once, and we can. We just need to, stop doing the partisan talking points and just look for real solutions. So that's my answer for the watershed.
Thank you. Steve, same question to you.
If you had to pick a complicated topic, certainly where water is going to go in California for the next 25, 30 years is going to be one of those top 2 or 3 really tough topics. And I think what I would like to use my minute and a half to share with is voters out there ought to really be asking for a steady, experienced hand when it comes to where are we going to go with water. So whether it's the Ventura River watershed and the the settlement agreement, which depends on how the settlement agreement comes out. But yes, I certainly support trying to come up with a comprehensive solution so that we don't just keep kicking the can down the road on the issue of Ventura River watershed and what is going on. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. If Lake Casitas goes dry, we are really in trouble in the Ojai Valley. We have to start getting more proactive, and that's why I'm pushing for more funding so that the state can get in better position to streamline the approval of desalination plants at the right time, so that they streamline them with the least environmental impacts as they go forward. It's why I'm pushing for better groundwater management out there. But we really need an experienced, thoughtful approach to water. And that's what I hope to do if I'm reelected.
Thank you, Steve. And we'll wrap up that question with you. Daniel, tell us about your position on regional collaboration, the Ventura River watershed.
Absolutely. I think that regional cooperation is important. I think that we have limited water of our own here in Ventura County, and we rely on other areas to collaborate and use water at times when we need more from other areas. One of the biggest problems with the watershed, though, that we face, aside from the unfortunate unhoused encampments that pop up there because those people have nowhere else to go, there's also a problem with the water quality as well, because we've allowed whether it be from agricultural, oil, or other industries, to pollute our watershed and to pollute our groundwater as well here in Ventura County. So I think that our highest concern needs to be making sure that our water sources, whether it be our drinking water, our groundwater, our agricultural water, that it's all clean and not toxicified by our industries that are extracting the resources around us. So whatever work we can do in collaboration with other regions to improve the quality of our water and the amount of the water that we have so that it's not put into use for other things, I think is extremely important.
Thank you. And this will be our last question, but we have to do at least one on crime. This is a major issue for people in the community. Steve, you're up first on this one. So tell us your position, Steve, on policing, reducing crime. We've seen a lot of attacks by organized gangs from South America, burglaries, and also the big issue about defunding the police. What is your position on some of that?
I grew up in a family, Irish immigrant family. My father was a police officer in Indianapolis. And so I grew up sitting at the feet of a lot of police officers at our house, playing poker and telling stories. And I feel like I understand police culture pretty well from that basic experience. Now, certainly some things have changed, but there's quite a bit about police culture that hasn't changed that much since then. What I really want to see in California is a strong effort by the professional police officers to increase the amount of professionalism in the departments that are out there. And that takes more funding, not less funding, if you want to professionalize these departments. You can't ask people to professionalize at the same time that you're out there defunding. And so that's the most important thing that I'm focusing on. As a teacher for 25 years, I saw in high schools, nobody was more frustrated with bad teachers than the good teachers in the school, the teachers that were cutting corners, the teachers that weren't being professional. And I think the same thing's true in police departments. And I want us to try to find ways to do that with police officers. And with that, you have different waves of problems, but professional policing in our communities is really the key to staying on top of the ever-evolving crime. I mean, who would have thought of the new crime waves that are out there now? And professional police officers are what we need to solve that. Thank you.
Cole, please share with us your views about policing, crime, defunding the police. What are your plans?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people with Prop 40 or with 47, I think a lot of people thought that crime would go through the roof. I think repealing 47 would be one of the first things that needs to be done here in California. I think we absolutely should continue to fund and well fund our law enforcement. I think we need to stop villainizing law enforcement. Their job is hard. My kid's godfather is a police officer. He's a Black police officer up in Northern California. He's the vice president of his Deputy Sheriff's Association. My grandfather was a San Jose PD officer for 30 years. I know the police culture very well, and they have a very hard job. Their job is to protect the community. Our communities don't feel safe. We're looking over at Los Angeles and what's happening over there. And people in the community are worried that it's going to just continue to come and grow here in Ventura County. We know the police officers here. We know the sheriff's deputies here. They're wonderful people. I don't think we have a culture problem here. And I think that most of these things that you would talk about, the issues that a lot of places in the state have, we don't have here in California. Our officers are very well trained, and they should not be lumped in with anyone who makes a mistake in a different state. Just like anything else, no one deserves to be painted with a broad brush. Our law enforcement should be praised. We need to get back to the days where kids grow up wanting to be a cop. And that's what I would push, and that's what I want for here in Ventura County.
Thank you. Daniel, we'll wrap up with you on this question about policing.
Wonderful, thank you. So my father is a police officer and my uncle is a police officer in West Virginia. And so as everybody else has mentioned, I'm well aware of the police culture. And so my biggest issue is focusing on the excessive amounts of burdens that we put on our police. And what I like to focus on is reimagining community safety and reallocating community funds. So we put an excessive burden on our police officers. They're responsible for everything from getting a tree out of a cat all the way to solving a triple homicide. Right. And so instead of requiring our police officers to solve all of these problems that don't necessarily fit into what they got into to protect and serve, we can branch off some of those responsibilities to community resource agents or mental health rapid response teams, where there isn't always a need for a gun at every situation where you call 911. And so we need trained dispatchers that can handle allocating the calls, whether there needs to be somebody with the gun there. And when we have issues where maybe somebody that's hostile and violent, but that also may be experiencing a mental health issue, we need to send a mental health rapid response team that includes a social worker, a paramedic, or an EMT, as well as a police officer. So that the police officers aren't continuing to be put in situations where they have to pull out their guns. We also need to demilitarize our police. When you give police officers, when you give anybody military weapons and you put them on our streets, you're preparing them for a war that may or may not exist. And so we need to also work on rebuilding community trust between our police officers and the community they serve, so they are not seen as enemies.
Thank you, Daniel. Well, thank you, candidates. You've all done a great job, especially over this online system. And one of the disadvantages of this is that I can't have the audience give you a nice round of applause for all of your great answers. We're now at the point where we're going to begin closing statements, and we're going to reverse the order. And Cole, when you're ready, you have 1.5 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you all being here and getting to hear a little bit about all of us candidates. You heard some great answers tonight, and there's several things on the ballot. If you were looking for the same old, tired politics of Sacramento, the same one-party rule that got us here, the same big government approach that doesn't think that you have the common sense or the right to be able to take care of yourself as a citizen here in California, those old policies are on the ballot. But if you believe in a rejuvenated, renewed, new hope for California, that's on the ballot too. It's not a choice about what you have to lose. It's hard for California and for the government here to take more from you than they already have. It's what do you have to gain? If you want change, if you want someone who's actually going to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work, then send the person that does that. If you want someone who's going to work tireless for you and who's going to be there to see the job actually come to fruition for a new California that is there for your children's generation and hopefully for your children, the children of your children's generation to come. If you want that, then I truly am your candidate. If you want someone who is going to work hard to serve you, just vote for Cole Brocato. Thank you very much. I can't wait to go work for you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Steve Bennett.
I'm going to close by talking about what is one of the really important things to me. And that is 15 years ago, my wife and I took in a Mexican immigrant family and 3 children. So mom, dad, and 3 children. We thought it was going to be temporary just for a few months. 15 years later, it's mom, dad, and 4 children because 12 years ago, they had another child. And for the last 15 years, on a day in and day out basis, I have gotten to witness how difficult it is to be a Mexican immigrant family here in Ventura County, here in Southern California, here in modern California. So that's part of what makes me so passionate about trying to get it right when it comes to good government and good services. And it's what makes me so frustrated with the demagoguery that can get thrown out there, the easy sound bites, the easy answers. It is not easy to try to solve the problems of nearly 40 million Californians. It takes real insight, real dedication, and a real willingness to tackle the hard problems in a strategic way. And when it comes to climate change, when it comes to income inequality, not easy, but I know the 4 kids that have grown up in our house are going to have a terrible future if we don't do as good a job as we possibly can. So every day I'm dedicated to doing that. Thank you. I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you. And we will wrap up with our third candidate, Daniel Wilson.
First, I want to thank the Ventura County League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum tonight and everyone in the community for joining us. As previously stated, my name is Daniel Wilson. I'm a working class transgender veteran choosing to run for California's 38th Assembly District with no party preference so that I'm only representing the voters in our constituents. As a millennial, I am part of a generation that has known nothing but mass shootings, forever wars on drugs and terror, crippling student debt, being a permanent renter class, 3 economic collapses before our 40s, an ineffective hyper-partisan government more interested in fighting than solving our problems, and the paralyzing fear of not knowing if we'll ever be able to own a home or start a family because either our economy or our government or our environment, either our economy or our environment will be in flames. To those of us living with the consequences of the legislative failures that led us here, it is beyond obvious that the status quo is not working for working people. Marginalized communities carry the greatest physical and financial burdens in maintaining our economy while being exploited for profits by the very industries denying us benefits. We need to flip our legislative priorities right side up and finally alleviate this unequal burden by demanding that every one of us is empowered with the guarantee of a living wage, quality public education, healthcare, housing, and the right to unionize. We pledge to refuse corporate, fossil fuel, healthcare, lobbyists, or any other special interest money. Our campaign is building a coalition of, by, and for the working class people, and we invite you to go to votefordaniel.com to join our fight for better for all of us.
Thank you. And we are done with the closing statements, but we have very important messages coming to you. I'm going to invite back our president, Betsy Patterson, with some last minute comments that you'll all want to pay attention to. So thank you again, candidates, and thank you to our volunteers and also the co-chairs of the League of Women Voters Voter Services Committee, Kathy Morgan and Pat Essick. Betsy, it's all yours.
Okay, I'm going to share a screen, but first I want to say thank you to all the candidates for joining us. You make democracy work a lot better by letting the voters know where you stand on issues and what you want to do to help our community. What I'd like to start with is just a few messages to make sure that everybody, that all the voters know what to expect. May 9th, the official ballot will be mailed to all registered voters, and that will be the starting of early voting. You can return your ballots via US Postal Service or in drop boxes. Starting on May 28th, there will be 10 vote centers open instead of polls. On one election day, there will be early voting starting May 28th for in-person voting at 10 vote centers from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then June 4th through election day, all 51 vote centers will be open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. On election day, the vote centers are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And to find a drop box or a vote center location near you, go to venturavote.org. And most importantly, I want to remind you all to sign the back of your vote by mail ballot envelope before you return it. You can track your ballot by going to where's my ballot.sos.ca.gov and find out when the ballot's coming to you in the mail, when the post office has received it, or when the when the elections office has received it and is processing it. And again, just to remind you, there are 3 different voting options. You can vote by returning it in the mail, drop it off in the drop box, or go in person to a vote center. One last additional piece of information is the League of Women Voters California has a website called Voters Edge, which is a nonpartisan candidate information site. And we encourage the candidates to put their information in that site so that the voters can look and find out more about the candidates. And finally, just to say thank you from the League of Women Voters, and thank you for being here tonight. And one last place I want to share is actually our, oops, not doing that very well, is the flyer for the future candidate forums coming up. You can register and submit questions as you did for this forum by going to our website, which is lwvventuracounty.org. And we hope to see you at the next forum. Thank you very much, David. I will turn it back to you.
Then I guess I have to unmute. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As Betsy said, we have more forums coming, so go to our website. You'll also be able to go to our website in a day or two and view the video of tonight's and all the future ones when they are posted. So thank you again to everyone and to our candidates. Good night.